You've probably been told that Wikipedia is not a reliable source for a research paper, and you may also have heard that Google is not a sufficient research strategy. When we're talking about academic writing at the university level, that's basically true. But Wikipedia and Google can be really great research tools if you use them properly. I have to confess that when I am researching something that I don't know anything about, Google is usually my first stop and Wikipedia is usually my second. At its worst, Wikipedia might not help you much. For example, recently I came across a reference to something called discriminant function analysis. I had no idea what that was, so I Googled it. As usual, the first page of search results included the Wikipedia entry, so I started there. Unfortunately, the article was just a stub, a very brief overview, about as helpful as a dictionary entry. In this case, I was better off going back to the Google search results and clicking on the first website. That had a lot more information. At its best, Wikipedia can give you context, the big picture, an introduction to a big and complicated issue that you might not know anything about. For example, let's say you've been assigned to research the Watergate scandal. If you type Watergate scandal into Google, the Wikipedia entry comes up first. This is a very informative, very extensive Wikipedia entry. The first thing most people need is a brief overview explaining the most important events. And the introduction to this entry gives you exactly that. Then the article text explains it in more detail. At the end, there's even a list of sources, many of which you can link to. If you went straight to a scholarly source on Watergate at the beginning of your research, it would probably assume that you already knew the basic outline of events. If you don't already know the basic outline of events, then Wikipedia can be a great place to get caught up. However, Wikipedia doesn't have the greatest scholarly ethos, so it's not a good idea to use it as a source in your research paper. Use Wikipedia to educate yourself at the beginning of the research process. Use scholarly sources to educate other people when you write your paper.